Good morning, everyone. Jim Laird joining you live from Dirioma, Nicaragua. Hope you're doing well today. It's a beautiful day today. One of the things I would challenge you to do is get outside and just chill. Like, when's the last time you actually went outside and totally relaxed? I know even I get caught up being super busy a lot of the times. So it's super important for you to remind yourself that you need silence, you need to chill, you need to relax in our, go kind of world. And it's really easy just to put more stuff on your plate and just to stay busy. And it doesn't even have to be physically intensive. I think the mental gymnastics is just as crazy and hard on your system as actually I think the physical labor is actually low to moderate. Physical labor is very therapeutic for the human condition. So I think the mental spinning in your head part is rough. So we've had a busy week. We've got a lot of things going on, building a lot of things behind the scenes. I'm looking to do a live probably tomorrow. I'm planning on getting into everything I've learned in the last 30 years of coaching people. It's hard to believe it's been 30 years. It's close to, technically on paper I started in 97, but I started much earlier than that with, helping people out, coaching people in the weight room in high school. I was always kind of teaching people. So I've been coaching people for a very long time. So I'm going to do a video on what I've learned, and it's a long list. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. And, I actually had somebody ask me the other day, just kind of in chat, kind of where I get my coaching style from. They tell you in marketing, like, you want to like go after a specific niche, or you want to so that way you can scale and all that kind of stuff. But, and there are certain niches that I attract, generally hard charging women, and then guys that are also kind of overdoers, hard chargers, type A. I attract a lot of type A people. But also on the other side of things, I really have worked with just about everybody, because my coaching philosophy comes from a couple of mentors I had in school. One by the name of Ted Fellows, who was in my elementary school teacher, and he was incredibly good at adjusting his expectations according to your ability. So he would basically, if you were really good, he would hold you to that standard. If you were a good athlete, if you weren't gifted, he wouldn't let you slide, but he would be very encouraging, and he would meet you where you are. That was like a really early part of my influence. And then another coach that I had in Bantam, Bantam football, which would be like Pop Warner here. Hi, Carrie. I look forward to our interview on Sunday. I thought it was today for some reason, but it's the 19th. So I had a coach in Bantam, that's what they called it, or Pop Warner football. His name was John Christian. And John is a very interesting guy, very, very passionate about what he does. But the interesting thing about John is usually when you play for a sports team, the gifted kids are the ones that get all the attention, and then the kids that I agree. Thank you, Kara. I'm looking forward to it as well. That's on Sunday morning at 10:30 Eastern. I just shared it on my story. So John was a good coach. A lot of people, because he was so passionate, found him a little annoying. I personally did not. I love the fact that he was as passionate as he was. And he had a way of simplifying things a lot. The thing about Coach Christian is that no matter who you were on the team, and of course when you have like a team, like a middle school team, there's going to be kids that are really good. And I tend to lean towards the upper end of really good. And then there were kids that were not very good at all. Some of them were just not great athletes. Some of them were very slow developers. He would find a way to he would find something the kid could do well, and every kid would play. He would find a way, and then he would name like a special defense, or he'd be like the Ravens or the Hawks or whatever they were. He would put personnel packages together that would emphasize people's strengths. And so there were kids that weren't very good, but they could block, or they could, they could hold he would make a really big deal about that kid's his skill. And he would set them up for success. So everybody saw the field regardless of whether they were decent or not, which I really appreciated, because when you're in middle school, it's about development. It's not about like playing the best player every single play of the game. But that's what it usually becomes, especially now in sports like baseball, and you got to win the 8th grade, World Series. And then in high school, I had a really interesting coach. Well, there was 2 guys that influenced me a lot. There's a guy named Jim Lazarek, who was a really good football coach. I got to interact with him a bit. He was the head football coach at Salisbury Compton High School, where I went. He was a math teacher, and I'd sit in his class. Math is not one of my strengths, and I would sit in his class and just like my brain. But he was a great football mind, and he really was one of the first coaches that was just really intellectual, like really broke things down step by step by step. He was very calming. I get too fired up. So I used to get so worked up and so emotional before games. I learned that I needed to listen to like classical music or Enya, or I needed to calm down. Like other guys would be blasting Metallica and whatever else. I'd be like sitting in the corner, listening to like Enya or whatever to relax, because I need to, I get overly amplified. And so I need to focus and I need to pace myself, because if I get too excited before the game, I gas out just emotionally. That's just kind of my personality. So he taught me how to dial things back, and he would like pull me aside and be like, just focus, relax, everything's good. You don't need to get so excited. Just chill. You know your job, do your job, kind of like a Belichick. And then the other guy there's a guy named Glenn Perch, who was my wrestling coach in high school. And he was incredible, because usually when you have like a wrestling program, there's certain basic fundamentals that everybody needs to learn in every sport. But he would work with each kid, because obviously the long, lanky kids need a different set of skills than the bulldozer me. And he really taught me about technique and efficiency, because I just overpowered everyone. And that works great until you run into somebody who's just as strong as you are, and then you're screwed. So he made me get more technical and more efficient. He basically helped customize my game, and he was really good that way. And so that those influences. And then of course, I had, when I went to Liberty, there was a coach there that I wasn't ready to listen to, because he was an assistant there, and he kept telling me, like, dude, like, you got to back off. Like, you're lifting way too heavy. It's not going to, get an extra 100 pounds on your squat. It's not going to help you. And I ended up getting hurt during spring camp doing some stupid partial squat. And it turned out to be true. Like, you're no good if you can't play, if you're injured. And I was plenty strong. I didn't need to be any stronger. I needed to work on reactive, explosive. I needed to work on being more elastic and more, bouncy, as opposed to more gorilla-like. But I loved the weight room, and I fell in love with the weight room, and I was, chasing heavy numbers, and it ended up costing me. So I think it was Coach Brian, I think it was his name, but he would tell me, man, like, just back off, like, lift a little bit less, like, do more, go out and run some routes, do some things that, you're so strong already, like, you don't need to really do much to keep your strength. You need to work on, like, doing more drills and running more routes and work on your footwork and things like that. And he was right. He was absolutely right. In high school, I just bulldozed everybody because I was so much stronger than everyone. Then you get to college, having skill really matters, and speed. There's a difference between power and speed, and being able to be elastic and bouncy. I needed more bouncy. I needed less gorilla. So he had a big influence on me learning that. And then I had to learn the hard way, of course, but learning like, okay, certain kids, they're strong enough to do the job. They may even need to work on some other aspects of their fitness level as opposed to just getting everyone as strong as possible, right? And then Jim Windler, the author of 531, who I met at the University of Arizona, had a huge impact on my philosophy. Jim told me, when I was early in my career and I was studying all these different courses, and I'd be like, man, I'm overwhelmed. Like, what do I, he's like, dude, just be the best beginner coach possible, because most people are going to be intermediate to beginners for the rest of their life, essentially. Most people aren't willing to do the kind of work that it takes to become exceptional. And even if they do, it's going to take 3 to 4 or 5 years to build a foundation to handle that hard training. So he's like, and I used to watch him train people when I was in Lexington. He was so good. Most of it, when he was at Arizona, personal trainer was kind of his job. And a lot of his clients were female. And he, broke it down to like, we're going to start with box squats. We're going to start with push-ups in the Smith machine. He brought it down to their level. And here's this like really badass dude, big, strong Jim Windler, who's literally breaking it down and taking it to the level that the person is at. And then Jim was always reading different things, and he did a lot of bodyweight calisthenics with athletes to challenge them in different ways. He thought outside the box. He was very unconventional with his approach, but he basically just looked at the overall condition of the person and said, well, we need to get this person better. And Jim also, in my powerlifting career, some of the biggest gains I had were from Chuck Bogelpool pulling me aside at a powerlifting meet and actually teaching me how to get in the proper position to deadlift. No additional training. It was just a matter of getting my hips a little lower, pulling myself through the ground and bending the bar. And my deadlift went up like 200 pounds in 6 months, just because I learned some leverage. So I was very helpful. And Windler, the same thing. Like, he put, I don't know how many pounds on my bench press by teaching me how to use the bench shirt efficiently. That was the day when you used bench shirts. So that kind of carried over into my coaching career, where it was like, it doesn't really matter who I'm working with. I'm going to meet them where they are. If it's a grandmother who is just worried about she can't walk them down the stairs, or whether it's a high-level athlete, I really don't care who you are. My job as a coach is to get you better no matter who you are or where you are. Now, I know that doesn't scale well, and that's not great for marketing, but I enjoy working with, because of some of the coaches I've had in the past, and I saw how they would adapt their style and their training and their expectations according to the person they're working with. I really enjoy that. So, and I realize, from coaching as many years as I have, is that most people really just struggle with consistency and accountability. And most people, unless they've got someone like kind of bugging them, they're not going to do the things they need to do, right? And so that's just kind of the way it is. And our modern life is set up in a way that, like, you look like the 60s and 70s, there wasn't a lot of fast food, ultra processed food that was hyper palatable that you just couldn't stop eating. Plus, you were outside all the time, so most people's circadian rhythm was in a good place. They weren't broken from a circadian rhythm standpoint. When you're sleep deprived, you're going to crave alcohol, you're going to crave sweets. You're not going to be able to make as good of choices. So that, combined with people just being outside, being a little more active, not having fast food on every corner, not having this super cheap, Doritos and all these things, the combination of those things, and I think the screens, like not constantly scrolling through your phone, actually sitting down for dinner with your family, all these things contribute to overall health, like more personal connection, more community back in the 60s and 70s. And then it started, people started moving into the city, they spent less time outside. There was more fast food restaurants. All of a sudden, we started getting more processed food. And then as time went on and computers came and screens came and more people started working, behind a desk, I think that was when things started going sideways. And today, because of the phones, because of our modern life, our modern, normal, everyday life doesn't pull us towards, having a healthy body weight. We're wired essentially to eat, because food has been so scarce in the past. We're essentially wired to eat as much as we can and move as little as possible. So we now live in a world where food is not scarce in any means. It's everywhere, and even people that are really poor can afford it. And you don't have to move because everything's pretty much done for you, right? Unless you're living here in Nicaragua and you have to cut the hay for your oxen, and you gotta grow things for your family, and you gotta walk to the store. Most people in the United States, they don't even have to go to the store to get their food. It's delivered right to their door, right? So it's only normal from our biology, the way we're set up, plus the sleep deprivation and your circadian rhythm being broken and being oversaturated with dopamine. It's only natural that you would, crave more scrolling, crave more likes, crave more sugary sweets, and you can't stop. So it's very hard for people to break out of that cycle. And so that's the one thing I've really noticed. And I'm going to talk about this more on my live when I talk about the biggest things I've learned. See, a couple minutes. Thank you. Por favor. Gracias. My breakfast is ready. So I'm going to talk about that more on my live. The things I've learned in the last 30 years of coaching is that it's really hard for people to change habits. And accountability is really the name of the game. And so consistently as a coach, I've learned this from sports. The coaches are constantly riding your butt about little things like, okay, your weight's too far forward on your hand in your stance, or you're telegraphing all your weight's forward, it's a run play, or you're telegraphing all your weight's back, it's a pass play. Making sure you're doing your warm-ups, making sure you're doing what you're doing. And today, most people just have a hard time breaking habits without guidance. And I'm shocked at when I work with people, you're constantly having to, and when I worked with people in Lexington, I worked with people for 20 years. It was a constant battle of reminding people to do the basic fundamentals over and over again. And I know if you followed me for a while, you're probably sick and tired of me hearing you talk about sleep and getting outside and all those things. But most people really don't take serious action on that at first. And if they do it for a little while, then they stop, or they do it for a while. And even me, I get distracted, something happens, there's more stress in my life. All of a sudden I start, scrolling through my phone at night to medicate. And then before you know it, it's like, oh, I'm not sleeping as well. And then I'm tired. I skip one of my walks. I fall out of my habit. And I'm like, oh, this is, get your act together, get back into it, start with the basics. And so people need constant reminding to do the things that work, the fundamentals. And then especially today, because there's so many distractions with peptides, and I'm not saying those things don't have their place. They definitely do. But it's so easy with, everybody's selling a training program. Everybody's selling this supplement and that thing and this thing. It's so easy to just chase all these fancy things around as opposed to really dial in the fundamentals, which should be the foundation of your training and your health. And then you should throw the occasional tool in from time to time, depending who you are. But, if you're just a normal person who's just trying to look good and feel good, supplementation should be minimal. You should be getting most of your stuff from real food. And your training is real basic, and it shouldn't be anything crazy. And you're going to do really, really well. I think a lot of people don't even try because they think they have to train like a maniac. And in order just to look good and feel good, you really don't have to train super hard, especially if you're a beginner. So it's just a matter of being consistent every single day. So I'm going to get on with my day. I look forward to seeing you on my live. I think I'm going to do it probably tomorrow. And then I'll look forward. I'm going to be on here again with Nurse Carrie on Sunday at 10:30. So if you're not in church, if you're skipping church, you can come to the Instagram church and we'll talk about whatever Carrie wants to talk about. So you guys have yourself a great day. Make sure you get outside. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. You can go to Vitality Brotherhood. I have a little fat loss guide that you can sign up for to get on the email list. There's also the Vitality Brotherhood group, which is totally free. And then I'm opening Vitality Sisterhood here soon, a women's group. We'll talk more about that later. That's not ready to go yet, but we're going to have that group. That's going to be totally free as well. And then of course, I have coaching programs that if you want to work with me on a daily basis, we can discuss that if you'd like. So have yourself a great day. Make sure you get outside, and we will see you again soon.